Welcome to the 60 Plus podcast.
I'm Janet.
And I'm Joe. How are you today, Janet?
I'm good. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah. You feeling better?
I am. For
Mm-hmm.
people that may not know, I had a back issue and it's
Mm.
annoying.
It's annoying.
It's annoying. But, I'm able to be vertical for a little longer than I was a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, good. The trend line is positive.
It seems to be. It seems to be.
That's really good.
I'll be starting PT soon and got an appointment with the ortho guy and
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's
Everything health related.
fun stuff, right? Fun stuff.
Yes. Well, we have to stay mobile.
That's true. I
Right.
feel much less mobile than I had been, and haven't been to the gym in a few weeks. Yikes!
Wah, wah, wah.
I know. Well, it's throwing off the Megan challenge.
I know. Well, we've been really on the down low with Megan, and she hasn't contacted us, so we're just going to keep quiet about it.
Shh.
Don't tell Megan.
Well, I can't imagine
How's
doing
it
those
going, though?
bear crawl things and stuff right now. Like,
No.
no,
Yeah,
that's
I
not.
might have
That's
to
not
take one for the team and just go see Megan and be like, sorry, Joe can't be here, but I can.
happening. I feel like I've lost some of the progress that I did make at the gym and
Yeah,
the
it's
strength training
so,
stuff.
I know. It's like you work so hard to build it up and then it so quickly dissipates. Like, wow,
Yeah.
we miss a day, You're like,
It's kind of like if you have a lawn and you don't, it's like you don't
you
mow
have
it
to
for a week.
tend to it.
You got to tend to it all the time.
That's right. Our bodies are temples.
Our bodies are our lawns.
You gotta mow them. Okay, I think we're getting off track
Yeah,
here.
a little bit. What are we going to talk about today, Janet?
Well, we're going to do a hot topic episode about this idea of following your children wherever they go.
Well, I did that when they were like 3, right? And I'd follow them around.
I don't mean that. I mean, like, if they move for jobs, like, say your children are married, they have grandchildren, you have grandchildren. Are you going to live near your children? And should you live near your children?
So you and I have different situations in that regard. Your daughter lives not far.
That's correct.
She doesn't have kids.
Not yet.
Both my daughters live a long drive or a plane ride away.
Right.
One farther than the other. One's married, no kids yet. And people have asked me many, many times since she's moved and since she's been married, if I would move to where they live.
Right.
And my answer really so far has been no.
Right. But that might change.
Well, so the reason that it's no is first, I don't know that they're going to be where they're going to be
On the long term.
They could
Right.
move a year from now, and then what?
Yeah.
So we're going to get into some of these other things, but
Right.
this has been my thought process to date. I don't want to be the guy that's just hanging around with
Yeah.
nothing else to do, but
Right.
hang around with my kid, and
Right.
daughter, and her
It's
husband.
interesting because when you think back not that long ago, it was pretty normal for multiple generations to live in one home.
Oh, for
right?
sure. My father's generation, that was very much the case. My
Yeah.
grandparents lived on the second floor, and my aunt and uncle lived on the first floor.
Yeah. So it's really changed quite a bit. And you've got, it's probably like the millennial generation that we're talking about here that are children and who will have children. They're very mobile.
They are.
And, we'll go for the job and we'll move for the job. And that's not unlikely that that will happen. So, it's a real conundrum for you, especially if you're retired and you have time for your grandchildren and your children. What do you do?
I think our generation is probably that transition generation. The generation prior to us,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's pretty much stayed where they were from.
Mm-hmm.
Our generation, I'm thinking about my friends, and I'd say about half of them live where they grew up or very
Right.
close to where they grew up,
Right.
and half moved some distance away. Not thousands of miles, but hundreds of miles.
Right.
The generations after us, it's very common for people to move very far from where they grew up and move around a lot.
If you think about it, gone is the day that you have a job for life.
Oh,
you know?
that's long gone.
So the millennial generation is very comfortable moving and changing jobs frequently, like every couple of years, it seems.
Remember back at the beginning of your career, the advice was don't jump around too much.
Well, no, because there was things like pension and defined benefit
Well, it
plans,
just didn't look good on a resume to
and it
have.
didn't look good on a
Hmm.
resume, and you wanted to show loyalty, and I guess there's not much of that left on from either direction, really. Now you've got companies actually scrambling though to keep their employees happy so they'll stay, right?
I was talking to somebody recently who's involved in hiring, and they said, gone are the days where when you hire someone, you're marrying them.
Right.
It's just dating at that point. It's just a date.
Mhm.
And nobody expects that somebody's going to be there for a very long term. It's unusual for someone to be somewhere for a very long time.
So these are all the factors that are sort of driving this question for our age group. What do you do, especially if you're retired now, and do you follow your children? And so, we did a little bit of research, and we have maybe some thought-provoking questions to ask yourself. One of the things that sort of pops out is having a really honest talk with your children. You want to know, should you move closer to your children and grandchildren? And are you sure? I think the number one question is, are you sure they want you to move closer to them?
Don't you think that the answer to that question can depend on who originates the question? Like, Dad, will you come live near us?
Right. You wouldn't want to hurt their feelings maybe if your mother comes and says, "Oh, I'd love to help out,
Hmm.
why don't I move closer to you?" And you're like, "Sure."
Well, so that's where the really honest conversation has to happen.
Exactly.
And I think that
Exactly.
you need to be clear that you need to have an honest conversation about it.
Yes. And one of the other things that came up is this idea of making the decision for yourself first. So, in other words, are you going to be happy there? Wherever that new place is, can you make friends? Or will you, to your point, be totally relying on your family members for your social life and for, no, your free time, whatever, standing on their doorstep 24/7. Please take me in. Please feed me.
I've said before, I think I might have said it a couple of weeks ago, I've never lived more than 35 miles from where I live right now.
Wow. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
So to go someplace that's a plane ride away from where I am now,
Hmm.
I would be a fish out of water. There's no question in my mind. It would be disruptive.
Right. But, I mean, I think a large part of that is personality too. Are you comfortable in new scenarios and making new friends and trying to adapt your life? But one of the things that they suggest is that you sort of take a test run, that you go there and sort of embed yourself for a month and see what it's like to live there. And does it have the support system that you need? Does it have the services that you might need from a health standpoint? What about financially, et cetera, et cetera?
What's the cost of living in the new place?
Yep.
Both of my kids live in a somewhat well populated area.
Right.
It's not like they're in the middle of the boonies, but my life has been, I mean, for the past almost 30 years within 2 miles of where I live right now.
Mm.
And that's where my life is. When my,
Yeah.
my
And
friends
you're
are
like,
there, my support system is
right.
there.
You're like the mayor here, It's like you walk down the street, you're like, everybody's like, "Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe. How you doing?"
And not to say that that wouldn't happen somewhere else, but it takes time, right?
Right. Sure, it does. Yeah.
So for nearly 30 years, I've lived within 2 miles of the spot I live at right now.
Mm-hmm.
That took a long time to get to that point.
Right.
And I'm not saying that it couldn't happen again, but I mean,
Yeah.
do I have 30 years?
Oh gosh, I hope so. Well, I haven't been here very long, but I love it here, and I would be hard pressed. I don't think I ever want to leave my home, really, where I am now. I love it so much. That's not to say I wouldn't go on vacation or whatever, be somewhere else for a time, but would I move completely? I'm lucky enough that they're not far down the road, and hopefully they'll stay there, but who knows? So, I don't know if I would face into this or not. But I think if my daughter has her way, she'll want me to around to be
Are
there
you
when the
projecting?
children
Are you
come.
projecting?
She's gonna have to like fight me. Be like, "Mom, give me the baby back now."
Okay.
Mm.
So It's funny you say that because that's the caveat that I always tack on to
Hmm.
the end of the question. Would you move to where your kids are?
Right.
And I don't know how grandkids might change
It
that
could.
calculus.
Or you wouldn't necessarily move, but you would certainly make more time to be there. Maybe you would get some place nearby that you could go and spend a week of the month or something
Like their
like
guest
that.
room?
Yeah, exactly. But you'd have to clear that with them.
It's important to remember that it's not just your kid that is involved in that decision.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you hadn't thought about that.
Oh yeah. No, I'm kidding.
And and
Um,
and your child has to live with their partner, their husband or wife or partner every day. So they need to really take that person's feelings into consideration in the
of
decision.
course. But I think my son-in-law really, really loves me, so I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
Let's
But
hope.
again, no, but it needs
Knocking on wood now.
but it really does need that
Of course.
very frank and honest kind of conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not one of those conversations where everyone's like pretending to
Right.
be honest.
Right. And also, you got to talk through all the potential issues going forward. Like, what happens if you do move nearby? What happens if something happens to you? Right? Is there is there care that you can count on?
Hmm.
Because you certainly don't want to necessarily burden. So, like, understanding expectations currently, but also what they might be going forward, right? You want this to be a positive thing. And the more honest you can be about how it's going to work, the expectations, the roles, how you're going to transition from one phase to the next.
Hmm.
It's funny. I think about, when I was raising my daughter and I was working and I had such a gift. I had a neighbor who I was telling her how I was looking for somebody to come in and watch my daughter while I was working. And she's like, "Well, I can try that. Why don't we try it for 6 months?" Well, she was with us until, my daughter went to second grade.
Wow.
She became like, her grandmother, and we're still very close. So I was very lucky that way. My mother wasn't nearby, even though they were very involved, but they weren't close enough to have that daily responsibility.
Well, that brings up a good point. What's the reason why you're moving closer if you have grandkids? Is it to have daily responsibility?
Right, exactly.
And what are the expectations on each side of the equation?
Right,
Are your kids or your daughter or son expecting you to be there daily? And is that something that you want?
right. Because then that means you really don't have life for yourself.
I was talking with a friend just this past week who kind of gave me the idea to have this as the episode.
Hmm.
She said, I've already gone through the child rearing thing. I've raised my kids.
Right.
I love my grandkids. I want to spend tons of time with them, but I don't want to raise my grandkids. That's a reasonable attitude to have, I think.
Yeah.
Some people want, I think you might be on the other side of that equation,
Possibly.
but but I think everyone's different and you have to think about what your needs are and what your desires are
Right.
and what the expectations are.
Right. And
Are you
that's
going to
not
be
to
are you going to
say
be the hired help to come in
no.
and take care of the
Right.
grandkids and
I mean, I still want to travel and I have so many, interests and things that I do. And I certainly don't want to give all that up. And so I kind of jest that I'm going to be there on a daily basis. But in reality, that's probably not how it's going to work.
and even if it does, at some point the kids age out of that.
Right.
It's not forever.
Right.
Kids are going to go to school and all of a sudden you're going to be, wait a second, now what do I do with those 7 or 8 hours a day?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I'll have to think about that. But, we're really talking about relocation here. And I mean, that's a huge thing to decide, right?
Hmm.
And there's emotional factors and there's also financial components of that decision. You have a retirement plan, and does this fit in with it? If we think about some of the emotional factors, I guess what the suggestion is here is, to really, to your point, go deeper into the why.
Hmm.
Why would you be doing this? Why are you going to relocate? What is the expectation? And is that agreed upon by all parties? And what role do you really want to play in your child's life? What role do they want you to play? That test run might be an idea, or to have that conversation about, for how long is this arrangement going to be? What is the anticipation of that? That's the emotional aspects. And then you have the financial
Well, there are other
situation.
emotional aspects too, outside of your responsibilities or role as a parent and a grandparent.
Mhm.
But just as an individual or a couple, are you going to be able to make friends? The things that you have done where you live now, are you going to be able to continue those?
Right, the things that you love.
Are you
Yeah.
are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? If you're an introvert, well, it might be kind of hard to break out on your own in a brand new place.
Right. And also, what if they move again?
Exactly. Because it could happen. Or you wouldn't want to be the reason why they might want to move again, but don't.
Like away from you?
Well, no, say a job opportunity came up and they would have to move for it, and they say, can't do it,
No, we're not doing it because mom would
because
have to move again.
or we would be leaving mom.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to consider. I think it's most important that regardless of who brings up the topic,
hmm
the parent or grandparent really needs to think about their own needs first.
hmm
And that may sound selfish, but I don't think it is.
You're already considering something for them. It's just saying, layer that on. You've got to consider your own happiness first. If you're defining happiness by spending every day with your grandchildren and your child in some form, then that's what's going to make you happy. And maybe those what ifs aren't as important and in relationship to how you're viewing that. So I guess it's relative to what it is that you want in your life and how you want your life to look as it relates to your family.
I'm just going to get a van.
Is that what you're going to do?
Get a big van,
Huh?
and I'll live in the van.
Oh, that's cool. You could get one of those VW vans with flowers on it and stuff. That would be really cool. Get a surfboard.
A
Oh, you'll have to
surfboard.
wait till your back is better.
Let's do that. But then it doesn't matter, right? I can just be wherever.
There you go.
Oh,
You know what? You can grow your hair out.
I wish.
You could become like a hippie again. Were you ever a hippie? Probably not. I don't feel like you're hippie
I
material.
might have looked a little hippie-ish, but I didn't really have.
I remember having purple bell bottoms, and those were like my treasured pair of hippie jeans.
Hmm.
I was kind of young though to be a hippie. You were probably older than me.
We've established this. You're still a boomer.
No, it depends on who you ask.
I challenge you to show me a source that would say that you're not a boomer.
My friend the other day said,
My friend, the woman.
the one who really likes me.
Oh, I'm offended, Janet.
Hmm.
So was I a hippie? No, I looked like a hippie, but I really wasn't. I was a little too
Okay.
straight-laced to be a hippie.
Okay, yeah, I get that. I got that impression about you.
But the VW
Straight
van,
lace part, that is.
what gave it away?
I don't know. I just, I observe things.
Okay. All right, so
I think it's the organized draws that really, and the love for Excel spreadsheets. You are never going to live that down, Jeff.
no, it comes up in every
You are
episode now.
going to regret having revealed that one.
No, I don't.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm a bit of a nerd, and
Yep.
proud to be.
Just a bit. Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's
Remember
get
who
back to-
edits the podcast, Janet?
Oh, yeah, the power you have. So money matters, right? This is
Okay,
we're
yes.
getting back to what we're talking about here, Joe. Money matters to wait before moving near your child. There's a financial checklist that they have here. Should we talk about it?
Sure.
They say do a cost of living comparison.
Hmm?
So in other words, you've kind of plotted out your retirement. You're good where you are now, right? And your expense levels where you are now. What happens if you move? What are the local prices for things like utilities, internet, whatever?
Housing.
But real estate,
Hmm.
right? Do you have to worry about real estate? What about insurance? What about taxes?
Hmm.
Right? That can be significant.
A lot of people move to avoid state tax or estate tax,
Mm-hmm.
state or estate tax.
Yeah, they also talk about healthcare expenses, but what about just your healthcare providers, like the people, like doctors that you've been to for a long time?
Hmm.
I'd have a tough time moving because I'd move further away from my hairdresser and my car mechanic. Both very trusted people in my life, very important people in my life.
In the hierarchy of important people, hairdressers up near the top.
I have been going to her since 1997. I kid you not.
That's the year my older daughter was born.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So now you know how many years. You can do the math.
I was
So-
told there'd be no math involved.
You know there's always math with me. I love numbers. Just like you love Excel
Oh,
spreadsheets.
jeez.
I got the numbers for you to put in that Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. Can't get away from the Excel spreadsheets.
No. Mm-mm. So apparently there's a free online cost of living calculator from CNN Money.
Okay.
That you can use. It'll give you a quick side-by-side comparison of two cities using your current income. So that's a good little tool,
Sure.
right?
So you can go to CNN Money.
CNN Money. Yep.
Okay.
Called the cost of living calculator.
Good thing for it to be called.
And then you want to explore the differences in state and local taxes, find out about local resources for retirees, maybe meet with a certified financial planner to do an analysis before you walk away and relocate. There's some good ideas.
All good ideas, but I think the most important thing is think about your own happiness in the new location.
Yes, and your child's happiness too, right? Like
Eh.
don't
Eh.
your grandchildren's happiness. I just think about, my parents and what they meant to my daughter and in her life. And I certainly wouldn't want her children to miss out on a relationship with me.
I'm sure they won't. I have a feeling that you'll be very involved in your grandkids' lives.
Oh, I hope so. I can't wait. And I'm going to be able to get down on the floor and play with them too.
Because of the
Megan.
Megan Strength Challenge
Yes.
that I've fallen down on.
Whether or
because-
not I can get up from the floor, though, we'll have to worry about. But I think I'm pretty good.
You're doing great, Janet.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're thinking about moving to follow your kids,
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of good tips out there. There's a lot of good resources on the internet about it. But think about yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a selfish kind of way, but if you move to where your kids are and you're not happy, then anybody going to be happy?
Nobody's going to be happy.
Yeah,
Right? Happiness comes from within, Joe.
it does. It does. All right. I think we've covered this topic
Yeah.
pretty well.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say before we...
I say, have a good day.
I thought you were going to say, share the 60 Plus podcast with friends and family.
No, you say that.
I don't have to say it every week.
All right. So if you like what you hear on the 60 Plus podcast, please share it with friends and family members.
We'll talk to you next week. So until then, I'm Joe.
I'm Janet. Bye.